Hey there, thank you for stopping by Recording Rookie. Today we're going to talk about integrating the hardware synth module from Roland, the Sound Canvas SC-55 with Ableton. Up until now, the Sound Canvas has just been sitting off to the side of my rack for several years, ever since Digital World came about. But I've been wanting to use it live recently. And so specifically with this setup that we're doing, we're going to be changing patches in a couple of different ways. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are 100 other ways to do this and probably better. So if that's the case, please, by all means, list those in the comments below. I'd love to read those and learn from those as well. Uh, Not to be redundant, there are many tutorials out there about connecting external gear to Ableton. So that is one of the quick ways I'm going to show us here. But we'll build on that to actually change patches live through Ableton in a live performance, which is what I've come to need recently. To get started with just a basic connection on the Sound Canvas, I have Ableton pulled up here. Close that. All I have is one track open. That's my microphone, so ignore that. All right, you would have a blank canvas here. And what I'm going to do is just add one MIDI track. Now, this MIDI track, I'm going to go ahead and name accordingly. It's my Sound Canvas SC, and this is where I'm going to be getting the audio. I'm also going to be using it as the controlling track for my MIDI keyboard. So both of those are going to be coming in from here. And I'll go ahead and give it a nice color to match the Sound Canvas. There we go. All right, so on this track, just for a basic connection, we're going to get MIDI from my keyboard, right, which in my case is the SL Mark II from Novation. And I'm going to be communicating on channel 1. It doesn't, I'd prefer to specify what I'm using rather than just leaving it wide open. So that's why I do that. There is a gotcha in Ableton. I'll be going over a couple, but there is one regarding the monitoring status. In brief, anything set to auto has to have the track enabled when you're playing through it to hear the sounds. I don't prefer to do that live because then I have to keep up with what tracks are enabled and um, and how to get to them and whatnot. And I know I could launch a scene and have a script to make all the tracks enabled, but I don't care to have red dots while I'm playing. It bothers me. So I'll move over to in and I'll just disable it. I prefer to use mine in the in position. And we'll get to the gotcha here in a minute. We're not going to worry about a MIDI 2 at the moment because we're actually using an external device, which is the hardware, right? So I'm going to go over here, and we need to add an external instrument to the track for that. That MIDI 2 becomes an audio 2 now because the facilitating of the MIDI has been moved to this interface in between box here, the external instrument. Okay, so we're coming in through the keyboard, channel 1. The audio is going out to the master, but our interface box, this is where we'll point to the MIDI interface for the Sound Canvas. In my case, it's just a little M-Audio MIDI Sport from like 25 years ago that still works. Pretty cool. And I'll be communicating with the Sound Canvas on MIDI channel 1 also. That is not to be confused with this MIDI channel from the keyboard controller. Completely separate, completely nothing to do with each other. All right, so this just happens to be the channel that I'm going to be communicating with the Sound Canvas. And then the audio input from the Sound Canvas, I use a Digio 3, so I have 8 inputs. I'm coming in on number 6, and you would just use whatever your input is that your output of your Sound Canvas is connected to. Okay, so at this point, that is the basic of basics connection, and I should be able to hear sounds, and I can. As you can see on the Sound Canvas down there in the bottom right corner, it's set for bowed glass. I can change that manually down here for the instrument. We'll put that on space voice now. There we go. Okay, so we are playing the Sound Canvas. That is the very brief method of how to just make a simple connection. Of course, the need that I'm having now is I don't want to manually press the button to change my sounds. I want to just be able to be playing and have this track set up and be able to remotely change my patches. So the way we do that is through MIDI clips, which I'm sure you've read about on the net. MIDI clips makes things so much more powerful and flexible. Now you would think that you could just add a MIDI clip to this track and just simply change the patches. You can definitely add a MIDI clip. I prefer to keep all of mine unlooped and as short as possible. And let's just change that to a polysynth. I know it's a 91, and I'll name it accordingly there. I'll duplicate it and add a couple of others in there, and like that. Okay, and I know that 93, we're going to send that as patch 93, and program change 94. Boom. Okay, so now we have 3 clips. So what we can do, in theory, is just press this MIDI clip, and that will send the program change of 91 to the Sound Canvas, and it would change the patch right away. Let's click it and find out. Clicked it, and nothing happened. We are still on Space Voice 92. So the gotcha in Ableton regarding the MIDI clips and external devices is that you have to be in auto mode for monitoring, as I said just a little bit earlier. When you're in the in position for monitoring, it suppresses the external MIDI information on those clips. So now for internal purposes like racks and chain selectors and anything inside of Ableton, the clips are not suppressed. They work just fine because I have several in my live setup that utilize the on-off parameters and chain selectors, and they all run just fine when I'm set to the in position. But when I'm using the external devices, auto has to be selected for these clips to work, and that is in the manual. So it's not a bug, it's just normal operation that I found out the hard way. So what happens is if I push auto now, it's going to release the last clicked MIDI clip that it saw. So in this case, as soon as I click auto, it's going to release that 91 program change to the Sound Canvas, and you'll watch that happen right now. Boom, there it is. The problem again with this is I have to have the track enabled now to hear it, and I'm playing, there's nothing there. So I have to click enable, and now I'm playing what I selected, all right? And I could effectively just change these and play the different sounds there, okay? Well, that's fine if this is all I'm going to be using, but even still, if it was all I'm going to be using, I would not like to have this red dot there. It just bothers me. I don't want to have to worry about having to enable it, or is it enabled? I just want to always have it set to N to be playing. So in my case, this is not a practical solution, so I'm going to set it back to N and disable that. So the way we get around that, at least the way I've found to get around it, is method number 2, and that's just building on the prior of just adding a second MIDI track. Okay, now this MIDI track is specifically for program changes to the Sound Canvas. Okay, it does nothing, has nothing to do with audio, has nothing to do with my controller. It's just simply a separate patch out to my Sound Canvas, and I kind of view it as my virtual fingers. So rather than me leaning over to the Sound Canvas and pushing instrument and whatnot, I'm just using it from here. Okay, so the way we set that up is we come down, MIDI from will be nothing because nothing's coming into our track. Okay, so no input, we're simply sending messages out to the canvas to change. All right, and then down here, this is the out, MIDI out to, again, the MIDI port where I'm connected with my Sound Canvas. And again, I'm communicating on channel 1. And I can simply, at this point, move these clips over to the program change track now. And now they should fire off immediately. I'll hit 91 and boom, there's polysynth. And I can play that because I still have this in the in position. Okay, we have that. Then we'll go to bowed glass. Yep. And, so forth. Metal pad. Okay, so there's all of that. Now, as we know, the Sound Canvas is split up into 16 parts, right down here at the bottom, 16 parts. And each of those parts can be set to a different instrument or the same instrument if you're so inclined for whatever reason, or all the parts can be set to the same MIDI channel. or a variation of combos in between. Out of the box, each part corresponds with its respective MIDI channel. So part 1 to MIDI channel 1, part 2 to MIDI channel 2, and so on. Okay. Um, there may be times when you want to change multiple parts, like maybe you don't want to just use one, maybe you want to layer some within the sound canvas, and that's definitely doable. We'll look at that in a separate video. But for this right here, this is specifically just a change on one channel. You can make it whatever you want. If you want to use all your channels on 13, then you just simply move on down to 13 on your canvas so you can see it, and then whatever you have there is going to change, right? So now if I press polysynth 91 going out on channel 13, I'm on part 13. You've seen it because it's on MIDI 13, right? Then I'll press that. Boom. Now it's changing on that particular part of Sound Canvas. So whichever channel you choose, that's how you'll work it. Okay. So that's all for this particular video. That's methods 1 and 2. So 1's very basic. 2 builds on it with being able to remotely select your patches. All right. In the next video, we'll show how to complicate things a little bit and use multiple channels and get into some kind of selections and organizing how to layer some and whatnot. All right. Thank you. Hope this helped.